Hey guys, Father Luke here. Of course, we're not at Spelman this week. I'm actually recording here at our St. Anthony Shelter for Renewal. It's the apostolic work, what we call the Apostolate of the Friars here in the South Bronx. Next door, we've got the Friary. Across the courtyard is the old school building we used for the youth center where I was for 6 years. And there's a church where we have adoration and mass for special events. That's where I made my first vows, where we have all of our Easter celebrations and Christmas celebrations. And this little chapel that I'm in right now is where the men who serve with us at our shelter, the young men between ages of 21 and 25, they live here for the school year or for the summer or both, and help us. We really couldn't run the shelter without them. And that's our CFR missionaries for the poor, missionaries of renewal. I can't talk this morning. But I wanted to share with you guys just a few thoughts. There's all this stuff going on, and I imagine for most of you, as I think it is for me too, this coronavirus scare is probably one of the scariest things, or one of the most kind of involved events that we've experienced in our lifetime. There's really nothing else we can compare it to. Where 3 states, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, are coordinating efforts to shut things down. The St. Patrick's Day parade I don't think it's ever been postponed or canceled like this before. Just the businesses that are suffering, let alone, of course, the people who are sick, the people who are suffering, and those, of course, who have died. And I imagine that leaves you with questions. What does this mean for us? What does this mean about God? Where is He? And I can imagine that's a struggle for a lot of people, especially if you're young and you haven't faced maybe a crisis or a real struggle before. Something like this can really shake your faith. So I wanted to share with you just kind of my own place where I'm at with it. To me, the teaching of the church about the fall that Adam and Eve introduced by their disobedience, they introduced disorder into the universe. That there was an order, that God created the universe with an order, that things would work a certain way, that we ourselves would be ordered a certain way, that got disrupted by our disobedience. And it continues to do so, and that even affected the natural order of things, leading to sickness. But you say, what about all the ways that God has said that He's worked in the world, through the Old Testament, the prophets, the making of the covenants, leading up to the incarnation of Jesus Himself? What about all of that? What about God's involvement in the world that we believe in and that the church teaches us and that we hear about through the Bible? How does that factor into this situation right now? Well, we believe that God allows certain sufferings to continue to happen, certain natural order to continue to play itself out. And His promise isn't that He'll take away all of our difficulties. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but have no fear, I've overcome the world. For me, the greatest promise and the thing that gets me through these difficult times is that Jesus promises to be with us always until the end of the age. That He doesn't leave us alone, that we can pray, that we can know that He's with us. That gives me a lot of courage and strength in these times. That just this morning I celebrated Mass for the Missionaries of Charity, the religious order started by Mother Teresa. And typically some of the men from their homeless shelter are there in the chapel praying with them. Some of their volunteers, some of the young adults who teach in the school nearby. None of them are there, just the sisters. But there they were, praying for all of us, praying for the world, praying that in the midst of this difficulty and this challenge, God would help His people, but also that his people, us, you and me, we would have confidence and trust that we're going to make it through this, that this isn't the end, that even what destroys our bodies doesn't destroy our souls or who we are, that in fact, this can be a great time for becoming the man or the woman that you were made to be. That this is an opportunity to practice virtue, an opportunity to practice charity. That in the midst of these difficulties that we face during these days of this virus and all of these complications with government and shutdown of business and illness and sickness, in the midst of that, we have the opportunity to be charitable to each other. We're really going to have that ability because if we get locked into our homes with our families, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to be patient with each other. I was just yesterday, one of the other priests said to me, we might end up having to just stay in the friary, and I started to feel the walls close in on me. I was supposed to be really busy over these next couple of weeks leading up to Easter, giving retreats and preaching at parishes. All of that's been canceled. I erased it all out of my calendar, and I'm just going to be in the house a lot. And so I've been asking myself, what's that going to be like? I'm not running around. Nobody's going to see me. Nobody's going to clap for me after I give a homily. So what can these weeks leading up to Easter be about? As we don't go into school, we don't go to work, we're at home. How do we spend this time? Well, we're going to be together. We have the opportunity to be together and to serve one another. And that's really challenging for any of you that live with other people, or that even live just with yourself. It can be really challenging to be alone by yourself, with your own inner thoughts. It can also be challenging to be with other people. But we can share this time with God in our prayer. We can take the time to open our Bible, to spend some extra time. We have the extra time to open the Bible, to read what's there, to share with God the things that are going on in our hearts, the concerns we have, the fears, the anxieties, to really share with him, really, really honestly. God, this is where I'm at. This is what's happening with me. See, all this stuff that's going on, we have an option. We have an option to harden our hearts. What did it say in the Bible? It said, "Oh, that today you would listen to his voice. Do not harden your hearts as on the day when your ancestors tested me, though they had seen my works." We have the option to see everything that's happening and forget all the good things God has done for us, and to become locked in our fear, to forget that he has been good to us, that we do have life, that we've learned how to love, that we've experienced the joy of being loved and of loving others. Even just today, we're 3 days away from the first day of spring, and all of our daffodils are coming up, and there's flowers in the garden, birds are returning. There's beauty. I've got people reaching out to me, asking me how I'm doing. How is it at the shelter? How's New York City? People who love me, people who care about me. I have this extra time, this quiet time to pray and be with God, to listen to what he has to say to me. What does he want from this time, these next couple of weeks? I really encourage you guys, during this time when we're at home, where things are quieter, maybe things are noisier with all your siblings around at home, but this time where we're a little more stay put. Practice charity when it's hard. Look for ways to serve one another. Help with the dishes, take out the garbage. Think of somebody that lives down the street or down the hallway from you in your apartment building that maybe needs some help with something. Be smart, don't take any great risks for your health, but also think, what's God calling you to do? Maybe you can learn what he's calling you to do by taking some extra time of prayer, praying with the scriptures, praying a rosary, reading a spiritual book if you have one, writing in your journal, speaking to the Lord from your heart about the things that are really going on, and then also taking the time to listen. It's all the stuff we talked about doing during Lent. Works of charity, prayer, almsgiving. remember, it's a way of getting outside of yourself, not getting locked in, not having that hard heart, but getting outside of yourself, making that space in your heart for God, making that space in your heart for other people. That'll be a good way to spend this time. I pray that you don't get overcome by anxiety or fears or worries, but that this is a time for you to experience that in the midst of all the difficulty, God is with you, that He still loves you, that He's caring for you. You can encounter Him in prayer, and you can encounter a sense of joy in serving others. God bless you during these days, and know that you're in my prayers.